So when we think about AI adoption, what slows AI adoption, and I would even say brings it to a halt, we sort of see four things. And by the way, a lot of these we used to do ourselves. So just to sort of like run through them real fast. So the first one is, the lighthouse case, like, oh, look what Walmart's doing, or look what IKEA's doing. That's not actionable, right? So forget how much ROI they're making. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to do it. The second thing is the tool rollout, right? We see this all the time. 10,000 Copilot licenses go on computers around the organization, right? And it seems great for the people who use Copilot. They're like, this has changed my life. Now it's going to change everybody's life. It would be like putting a treadmill in every house in America and thinking you're going to cure heart disease. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter how many features your treadmill has. I do have a treadmill. I mean, it's downstairs, and I bought this thing, and I was like imagining how I'm going to look in this summer. My wife's going to be like, who's that guy, right? I mean, like, and yet all the features do nothing unless I actually get on the treadmill. And the reason I get off that treadmill has nothing to do with whether or not I know how to run on the treadmill. A toddler could figure out a treadmill. It has to do with whether, actually has to do with my limbic system prioritizing quick rewards and conserving energy. But that aside, rolling out tools like treadmills or large language models doesn't work because it's not something that people will naturally just like learn and then replace with something, right? So that's the second thing. The third thing is the use case problem, right? Again, people teach in use cases all the time. You and I see this all the time, right? So, and as you and I see all the time, people don't extrapolate.
No.
And the reason is, I believe, is that it's just too broad a general purpose technology. And so the analogy I use a lot is like electricity, right? Like nobody wakes up in the morning and is like, what are some use cases for electricity today, right? Like, how can I make my life more productive using electricity? Right now, it's a dark room, and so you use electricity, or you have to open the garage door, whatever it is, right? Except that with a purpose, a general purpose technology this broad, everybody's stuck on like the light bulb. People are like, yeah, the light bulb. It's like, and you can use the light bulb to do all the same stuff, but now it's better lit, right? I mean, like that's the problem. And the last thing is, and this is what I was going for here, the AI champion. And by the way, we used to teach this AI champion model all the time. Like, hey, get people who are really good at it. They'll teach everybody else. It doesn't work. And it doesn't work. And this is the whole problem because, again, it doesn't matter if you know how to do it. Does your team know how to use it? And not even know how to use it, but are they using it? And with the AI champion, the analogy I use real quick on this is if you wanted to get your whole office healthy, right? Like you have a big team here and everybody seems great. But if you wanted everybody to do like, yoga every morning, and you wanted to get one of your team members to sort of, say like, hey, yoga, teach everybody yoga. That person could teach everybody the moves, everything else. So at the end of the month, everybody would know all the moves, why it's healthy. But what they would not know, or what they would not do rather, is get up every morning and do, because one is a behavioral shift and the other is a learning curve. So that's why these things, I think, stall in real enterprise.
So when you go to a client, are you looking for the AI champion? You're looking for the person that you think this is the person who's going to be able to affect change on this organization, to have that behavioral shift. How do you find who that person is?
I think you have to find that person in order to bring everybody else along, but it has to almost happen after the fact. So for example, like I'll go in and do workshops with senior leadership teams. And one thing that happens a lot is that the senior leadership team will say something like, hey, can you come in and give us specific demos? Because I always do demos. Can you give us demos that are tailored to whatever, private equity or something like that, right? And I'll be like, sure. And so I'll come in and I'll do the demo. Now here's where it backfires. And here's where the AI champion has to come in. It'll backfire, and the skeptics in the room, because you always have skeptics in the room of like a senior leadership team. You run into these folks all the time, right? And the challenge is that those skeptics will look at what I've done and say, but that's not a good answer. And now I'm stuck. Right? Because I don't know if it's a good answer or not, because I'm not in private equity. And then everybody else is like, oh, so what I do instead, and this is how I really recommend people run workshops, by the way, so sort of one of my trade secrets is like, get somebody on board before, right? Sort of say like, hey, I'm going to turn to you. And I'm going to be like, John, tell me how you are using this. And that's the AI champion who's really absorbed it. And then we sort of like do it live together. But what they can't do is then walk out of that room and just get everybody else to use it, because the problem isn't whether people have the tool or understand it or anything like that. The problem is, how do you shift behavior? And that's the specialty we do.
That's amazing. First, your trade secret's going to come with me back to my, seriously,
right on,
because we work a lot like that. Exactly. Like we sit in a room with a lot of people and we say, okay, what are your problems? We're the experts in whatever this technology is, and we're the ones who have to be kind of creative, but we're coming in from IBM and working with a customer. Internally, how do you foster that creativity within the organization?
I think that you have to train a wildly different way. I think that everything we've been doing, and I believe this very deeply, I think has been wrong. And I think it's proven to be wrong by the fact that we're almost 3 years into this whole journey, and still adoption, as you've seen and I've seen, is very low, right? I mean, like there's some organizations that are, really killing it and doing some great work, but it tends to be sort of isolated, at least how I've seen it, right? So given all that, like how do we make that transformation? So what I do in organizations is, first of all, point out that it is a behavioral transformation. But if I just did that, it would just be a TED Talk, right? I mean, like that's not actually that interesting. What's actually interesting is we have been using Google, for example, right? Like since the dawn of time, it feels like, right? The dinosaurs were using Google. And how do we use Google, right? So we look at this thing, it's a search engine, we give it a command, we get a response, we walk away. Now the problem is when your brain actually sees this, your brain actually looks at this, the way neural pathways work, your brain actually thinks it's looking at a search engine in the same way that if you see like a baby, you wouldn't accidentally talk to it, like a college professor, right? Like your brain works on visual cues. It just does things automatically. You can drive in the rain probably, right? And have a conversation because of muscle memory. So that's what our brain is doing totally subconsciously. Now, if it looked like C-3PO or if it looked like a person or something like that, you would never do that. You would never sort of say, to a person like, hey, give me the top 10 things to do in Costa Rica. And the person would be like, sure, where do you want to go? I've been there. No, I just give me the top 10. You know what I mean? Like you'd never do that. You'd have a conversation. The problem is your brain doesn't see this thing as a conversational entity. It sees it as a command response, walk away. And there's no way to fix that in your brain unless you start to build out paradigms and frameworks.